Alright, so the other day I saw this video looking at if Grand Theft Auto 5's power lines were realistic, and I was just thinking, could you apply that same idea to Emergency Hamburg? Because Emergency Hamburg has power lines, they have power stations, they have things like that, and it all starts right here at what is appearing to be an electricity substation. So it's a bit of a weird but interesting video at the same time today, because we're just going to be looking at if this power network actually links up to the city, if it connects properly, if it makes sense, and if the city is really getting power from here. Because as far as I'm aware, there's no actual power generation. Yeah, as far as I'm aware, in Emergency Hamburg, they don't actually have any place in the map which is for generating power. There is an exception to that, and we're going to come to that a little bit later, but as for the power lines, it really all just starts right here, and this looks like it's just a normal electricity substation. Normally, developers of games, they just, when they're trying to make a power station, they just throw together some components that look like they could mean something, but really here, I think this is just for looks. I don't think it actually makes sense. Obviously, we've got this coiled thing which connects to another coiled thing but slightly higher, and then it connects to these three lines here, and then these three lines go to what looks like to be a step-up transformer, which would obviously increase the voltage, and then but it's all a bit of a mess, you know. It doesn't really make much sense. You'd think those three link to these three, and then these three link to there, but that's not really how it works. It's all kind of a tangled mess. And then you can see we've got our first electricity pylon right here. I think that's what it's called. It's called a pylon, isn't it? And then that goes over to this one, and it goes over to this one, and it basically keeps going. And I'm sure you never have actually looked into this, but it does. They do go somewhere, and they do connect to something. We're gonna go have a look now. Now, you may have remembered me saying that there's no actual method of generating power in this game. Well, that's actually not true, because look, we literally have wind turbines plastered all around the map. I mean, you've got this one. There's probably like 5 in total of these wind turbines, and this one actually does make sense because it's literally right next to that electricity substation. So the idea is, I think what they were trying to do is that this generates power. Obviously, the line comes down there, travels underground to this electrical station, and probably feeds this. And then goes into the lines there, and obviously there's another one there, there's another one there. They're kind of scattered all across the map, and this could make sense. They could be cabled underground to connect to these main pylons around the map, which would provide some electricity, but certainly not enough to power an entire city, I think. Okay, I'm no expert, but that's just what I think and what I've learned from that other video I saw. So far, it's not that bad. It does make some sense, but let's go have a look at what this is connected to. So something to note is that all the houses in this game, they all have lights and stuff. They all use electricity, obviously, but there's no obvious kind of method of connection to each house except from underground cabling, which we can assume there's underground cabling because of these light posts everywhere, because they got to get power somehow. So that would kind of indicate that there's lines going under the ground, and that would also provide power to these buildings. And this is a very common thing in Europe, but in North America you will see little wooden pylons dotted around, and those usually are overhead lines that will provide power to, you know, the houses on the street. But in Europe it's more underground cabling in a city. Maybe in some rural areas you'll have like those, you know, wooden posts, which I have seen myself in the UK where I live. So you can see that these pylons eventually connect up to the harbour area. So they come all the way around the map. They go all the way from the electrical substation. They connect all the way down here, and they actually take a really weird route. And I think this is for decorative purposes. So they go that way, then they like loop around to where that tunnel is over there. Then they come all the way down here, which is a bit long. They could have just cut across the motorway, but I think it's just for decoration, you know. But they do connect to this. And this is obviously a step-down transformer, so after they increase the voltage so it can go on these lines here, it steps down into this, and then obviously this is powering the harbour, I would assume, which, to be honest, does have some sense to it, because all this equipment in the harbour, it's obviously going to be drawing a lot of power from the network, so I think it makes sense for them to have their own dedicated line. But that's actually the end of the pylons. There are no more of those anywhere else in the map, so it just makes you wonder, how does the rest of the city get electricity? Well, like I said earlier, it's probably underground cabling, but since we're in a rural industrial area, there should probably be some sort of link to the city overhead, But it looks like if we were actually thinking about this, obviously this is a very weird thing, and I don't think the developers put much thought into this because no one's really looking at, you know, if the power in the game makes sense. But that's just the point of this video, to see how good of a job they've done. And there are no overhead lines coming into the city, so we're going to have to assume that it's all underground cable, and that applies to the rest of the buildings here. I mean, I think it's very cool that the developers actually bothered to put an actual electrical, like, substation and a place for it to connect to at the end of the line in the game. I mean, that's already a lot of thought going into just a small detail, which, you know, people wouldn't think of. You know, you don't think to check this kind of stuff. I mean, you've even got water-based wind turbines here, and they have these little yellow bases on the bottom, so obviously they just copied the thing and put this yellow on the bottom, and this goes all the way down. So we'd have to assume, again, that's an underground line going up this hill, up here, and connecting to some nearby distribution thing, but that doesn't exist, so it's not completely realistic, you know, like, in saying that it all links up to the wind turbines correctly. We can't see any evidence of a line running from there to there, or there to there, to the city. But anyway, that's just like, it would be way too realistic, especially for a game. I mean, in the GTA video, they had sort of the same thing. They had a lot of random kind of power plants and substations that didn't really make much sense, which it just makes sense because it's meant for the looks, really, not for actually working, is it? Obviously, but I'm just saying, you know, it is cool that they've actually put something in, though. It does make sense, and it provides some nice decoration for the game, I think. We can actually get a much better view of the game's power infrastructure by looking at this overhead map, which was shot by DTADW, I think. It's like a nice render, and you can see the start here of the power is here, so it comes from here. That's the first pylon. Then it crosses over to this one, then it goes to this one, then it goes to this one, there. It goes over, like I said, it goes near the tunnel over the motorway, and then goes all the way down there, where they could have actually just cut straight across that way. But I suppose, if they were thinking about this, I guess they'd want to power, you know, rural areas nearby, like the farm shop, for example, would need power, but there's no actual line going off of this pylon and to the farm shop, so that's something that doesn't make sense. So the whole building, every building in the map, there's not a single building in this game that has a physical power line connected to it, which I completely get. I mean, it's a simple game, but if they wanted to be 100% realistic about it, that's what they would do. So yeah, that was just my overview of Emergency Hamburg's electricity infrastructure. I just thought it was kind of a cool idea after I saw that video. It's just a bit interesting because you don't really think about that aspect of a game, do you? You know, I'm glad to say that Emergency Hamburg does have some power infrastructure. It's not completely realistic, but some of it does make sense. Anyway, if you enjoyed this video, leave a like, subscribe. Thank you for watching. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, and see you next time. Goodbye.